A video has gone around, several different versions of it from several different angles. Apparently from an independent show in Georgia, a wrestler named Joe Black was assaulted by a fan. One of the most brutal headbutts I've ever seen on camera. Jim, have you seen this footage of the incident? And what are your thoughts? A lot of people were wondering specifically what your thoughts would be, considering you've talked so much in the past about incidents with fans.
Well, I guess, Brian, go ahead and ask me the question that's on everybody's mind, that everybody's been asking and talking about. Whose fault was this? Go ahead and ask me that question.
Whose fault was it that this happened?
Everybody. Everybody. So to paint the visual picture for those of you who might not have seen this clip, it's a small independent show. It's a small building, and they've got a rail around the ring, kind of like the bicycle rack rail. You know what I'm talking about. And it's a fan camera with, their phone. And this guy, apparently the match is over and he's walking down around the ringside, the wrestler, jaw-jacking with the fans and whatever the fuck has happened. And suddenly he stops, and you don't see in the video, you don't see the fan that he stops in front of on this video for a second, but you see the wrestler. He did the hat flip. When somebody says something to you, or you're in a jaw-jacking situation with somebody and you reach up and you knock their baseball cap off, right? That's what the wrestler did. And then he starts to go on, but the guy immediately pops right up to his feet and gets up on his side of the rail and gets up in the guy's face, and he gets back in the guy's face. And this fan is fucking this giant Georgia meathead. His head's as big as a bushel basket. He's as tall as the wrestler, 6 feet, 2 or 3 or whatever. And he's got to be 350 pounds and not, he's one of these Georgia farm boys that's not all fat. He's just fucking he's 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. He's as packed everywhere as he can be. He's big everywhere. His toes are big. And they jaw jack for a second, and this fan just takes this giant melon head and boom, and headbutts the fucking wrestler, who's a jacked up motherfucker himself, and puts him down to his knees. And then the guy comes back up and starts swinging, and then here comes some more plainclothes civilians. Some of them are on the railing side, and some of them are on the ringside side of the railing, and some of them are on the fan side of the railing. That's the only way that you can tell the difference, unless you know these people personally, as to who the fans are rushing up there, who the friends of the fan are that might be going to pull him back, who the people are supporting the wrestler. They all look the same. And this guy, the fan, is not backing down from anybody. Here comes some other guy, takes a swing at him from the wrong side of the rail again. I'm going to talk about this. We'll break it down in a second. And either throws a few punches at the guy and misses him, or connects and the guy just doesn't sell it because he's fucking ginormous. And it's just chaos. And then there's did you see the part where one of the other wrestlers in whatever is just concluded is still trying to work in the background of all this chaos and people running in this direction and throw punches at somebody else in an obviously working way behind this whole thing? But the answer of who was at fault, everybody. Here, number one, and a lot of people also asked, how would this have been handled in Mid-South Wrestling? It wouldn't have happened in Mid-South Wrestling. I'm not trying to blame the wrestler, since he already got fucking his ass kicked by the fan. He didn't get just pummeled. He got headbutted. He got the worst of it. But when the wrestler walked by and flipped the guy's hat, technically, I don't know about every state in the union. We might have Stephen P. New on at some point to break this down state by state, but pretty much as a standard definition of assault, the wrestler committed it because he, in an unauthorized fashion, touched the fan or the fan's fucking, what do they call it? What's the legal term? What he's wearing, his body, his bodily presence, right? If you spit on somebody, and I've found this out in several incidents, if you spit on somebody, that can be legal assault because something from your body is going to theirs, right? So there wasn't a felony, but just if you want to stick to the letter of the law, which I assume probably nobody in this barn in Georgia is going to anyway, but technically the wrestler committed a form of simple assault. Then this fucking guy who wasn't going to take that shit, standing up, it was on Twitter that he had been throwing slurs, whatever that means these days. So maybe he said something that triggered Joe Black, who is an African American. So you got that going for you. And we are in Georgia, and this guy did look like a fucking trumper. But as soon as the guy stood up, well, not even as soon as the guy stood up, as soon as the heel flipped the hat off, in Mid-South Wrestling or in any other territory pretty much except some off-brand spot show and down south or somewhere in a small building, there would have been uniformed police officers. There would have probably been uniformed police officers in the territory days, even in a small building. They might not have been as quick to react. But the uniformed police officers, as soon as they saw the hat incident, would have been right there. And as soon as the guy stood up, more of them would have come, and they would have never got that close. Also, the wrestler, I'm not saying that none of the heels in the past have not done the hat flip thing. But especially in the southern territories or in Chicago or in the north, any place you thought there was going to be trouble, you might be walking down the ringside jaw-jacking with all of the fans in general, but after the match is over with especially, you didn't need to pick one out to get heat with. That's what you did in the first part of the match, when if they're a little hard, you pick one of the front row, especially an old woman or somebody that's vocal, and you start getting on them, and that brings other people into it, but there was no need for that. So the wrestler was wrong in stopping in front of that guy specifically, because I don't care how big and bad Joe Black is, looks like, or thought he was, unless the guy had said something specifically to him, everybody knows what I'm talking about, that he didn't like, there was no reason for him to stop there. When he flipped the hat, technically, he's instigating, he's committing assault. The fan stood up and took it further. I don't even know if that's simple assault, a just premeditated headbutt when the wrestler was obviously not in the act of physically threatening him, verbally maybe, but not physically. There was no fight going on. So the fan's going to get popped if they do anything about this for escalating that. But especially after the headbutt. Then let's just assume that, okay, now we're not even talking about what would have happened in the territory days, because there would have been uniformed police there. And the wrestler wouldn't have done what he did, and especially wouldn't have done it to who he did it to. That big and fucking obnoxious looking a fucking guy. Then everybody else, they don't know. All the wrestlers that came to supposedly help, not one of them hopped the rail. They were all fighting from their side. If you're going to fucking punch a fan, it don't matter which side of the rail you're on. If you've committed that far, you're getting named in the lawsuit anyway if there is one. So just to not look like a bunch of feckless, incompetent pussies, you can't fight any motherfucker, especially a guy that big with a rail in between you. Did you see everybody? And they're leaning. And all the guy had to do was step back a step or two, and they're leaning even more. I don't know if they would have been able to knock that guy down if they'd hit their best shot, but they're literally swinging over a fucking bicycle rack. So there was no way they were going to take this fucking guy down anyway. So it was a bunch of wrestlers who have never seen an actual fan attack or intervention trying to fucking swipe at this guy who was just laughing him off. So the wrestlers didn't know what to do. There was no security. If there was security, there was the ring guy and everybody else dressed in plain clothes that didn't know how to handle it either. And then you see one guy in the audience side of the rail trying to ask the guy if he wouldn't mind leaving while people are screaming, throw him out. And he didn't look like he was too anxious to go. So nobody knew what the fuck they were doing there. And it wasn't even a real good fight. And I'll tell you one thing, right, wrong, or indifferent, and lawsuits be damned, if any top heel that felt like he had a fucking chance against this guy had been headbutted by this guy the way that Joe Black was, he would have been on the same side of the fucking rail with that guy before anybody could have stopped him. But nobody knew what to fucking do because they were all fucking shocked. Did I describe it about like you saw it?
You did. I mean, when you said he went down to a knee, let's just say it was pretty quick. He was back up and ready to swing at this guy right away.
Oh, yeah. No, but I'm just saying the headbutt was harder than the fucking hat flip. He flipped the guy's hat, and the guy said, there you go. And he went down to his fucking knee and came back up and ready to go, but didn't go over the rail. I know from experience, even with a couple of feet reach with a loaded tennis racket, if you're swinging over a rail, you don't have the best leverage.
The wrestler in the ring, who I'm assuming is the wrestler that Joe Black had just been working with, who immediately went and grabbed his arms after the guy hit him, almost to pull him away from it. Is he doing the right thing or the wrong thing?
Well, the way you describe it is he was doing the wrong thing. And if you're trying to break up a fucking fight and you're dedicated to breaking this fight up instead of helping your friend, the way you don't hurt your friend is by grabbing his arms and pinning him down. You get in between. You make it harder for the other guy to fucking hit the guy you're trying to assist. You don't fucking hold his arms so the guy's got free reign to here. Boom, boom, boom. Take one of those with you too. So, but he didn't fucking know. I assume nobody's been a bouncer in that equation there. But yes, he was trying to not, see his friend go to jail there. But no, don't come over and grab the guy that you're kind of on the side of and you just don't want him to get in trouble and pin his arms down when he's in the middle of getting fucking pickled by some giant colossus from South Georgia.
Not to justify the guy headbutting Joe Black, but this is part of the issue with wrestlers being so comfortable at ringside. And with most wrestling audiences that we see on TV, you don't have to worry about this kind of thing. You can flick their hat. We've seen MJF do this in the crowd. Of course, he had a security guard with him, but we saw him walk through the crowd and do this, I think, once.
Well, what have I been saying all it? That the big fat fucker in this video we're talking about, if there had been a security guard, cute little polo shirt that was about half his size standing there next to this guy, you think he wouldn't have headbutted him? He did it in front of the whole building, in front of God and everybody. All attention was on them. It wasn't like this was a little sidelight. Everybody was seeing what was going on. You get the right guy in the right frame of mind. Maybe he had been throwing slurs and that had part to do with it on both sides, or maybe he was drunk, or maybe he just a fucking asshole. But you get the wrong guy in the wrong place. That's another reason why, no, we didn't have to go over and flick people's hats or rip up their sign or in any way try to reach them, because that would give them the idea to they already wanted to. They already had that idea. They just, remember I told a story just a couple of weeks ago on how I'm yelling at this one guy and he fucking stood up and folded his chair up and picked it up, and Bobby Eaton jumped down and grabbed a chair and folded it up, and every man in the fucking ringside section stood up and folded their chair up. It just takes one thing with the right guy in the right place for him to think, okay, I can get away with this, or I have some justification, and boom, here you go. And then if there's not only no security at most of these wrestling events, especially independents, they're the ring crew or t-shirt guys, or hey, Bill, you go be security. Show everybody where their seat is. Don't let them throw nothing. But even as we've seen in the buildings that do have legitimate security services, they're not expecting shit like that. And yes, this was a little outlaw mud show. But that guy could just as easily buy a ringside ticket to the fucking next show in Atlanta. And somebody else could go over and just think, well, I can just flip these people off or give them the finger or flip their hat or whatever, because everybody knows it's all a show. And then you're holding your teeth in your fucking hand, and here shit's coming, they're climbing over the rail.
And I'm trying to remember who it was. I want to say Jade, but it may not have been Jade, but I've seen one of the women wrestlers in AEW do this. Like, that's the thing. You're that comfortable with the fans, and the fan who did the headbutt, pretty sure that if you could take him and drop him into any wrestling show in that area 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, it's the same guy. That's the fan you can't be comfortable with. They still are out there. It's just they don't go to wrestling so much, but that's the...
Well, and here's the thing. 50 years ago, the whole building would have been that guy. They might not have been that big, but they thought the same way. So that's why you didn't go out there and fuck him. You didn't need to go out and fuck with him on purpose. They were already ready. That's why when I yelled at people, I yelled at the whole building. You know, on a spot show, with an old woman in certain situations, yeah, you'll yell and make fun of her or whatever, but no, you don't, especially after the match, if it was hot or anything, you don't need to instigate. I got a security guard to come in the ring one night in Freedom Hall in Johnson City, one of the fucking local, I think he was college football player that they hired to be security. He got so fucking pissed off when we were fucking yelling at people. He slid under the ring or under the rope. And I went back and was telling the building manager, I'm like, I'm paying these fuckers. Guess, well, you're good. But yeah, that's the thing is, you know, nobody's expecting it because people don't do it anymore. But that this wouldn't, the fact that he headbutted the guy would have made, the wrestler would have made news 50 years ago. But the rest of it would not have even happened because that the opportunity would not have presented itself for the guy doing that in a building with no security and none of the other boys even knowing what to do. That's why, you know, especially in Louisiana, as we've talked about, the heels would wait to make sure that the main event heels got back in towns that, you know, you knew you were going to have trouble in, because you couldn't always trust the police or the security, and they were still trying. But the boys, it's better to have, in those situations, your friends and people who know what to look for rather than, you know, sometimes even the cops. But better to have both.
Boy, someone trained that fan, because he looked like he can cut a good promo, too. When he had his shirt ripped and he was pointing and yelling, I was like, oh, I believe him.
No, that's every guy on the corner in fucking South Georgia. They can all talk.
Well, I'm sure after such a traumatic experience at the wrestling show, sitting front row and having some guy respond this way to what may have been racial slurs, we don't even know exactly what were said, to be fair. What was said, to be fair. But perhaps you want to go home and just go to sleep.
You know, we're talking about going to sleep a lot today. But I'll tell you what. Here's the thing. We are known worldwide. Everybody knows that the Jim Cornette podcast and the Arcadian Vanguard podcast will help you sleep like nothing else.
Don't say that. No.
Oh,
no.
yeah, folks. I'll tell you, after you've drunk your beam, you don't want to just lean up against the wall. You don't want to just sit out on a stump. You want to have a nice, soft place to go to sleep, and that's where the Helix sleep mattress comes in, because we've talked about these. We've had so many of the Cult of Cornette listeners write in and give us their testimonials. Did you know that the Helix folks were awarded the #1 best overall mattress pick of 2020 by GQ and by Wired magazine? I can understand GQ, but I thought the people reading Wired magazine never went to sleep. These mattresses are so good that they even put people on cocaine to sleep. You just lay down on this thing, fuck, instantly you're zombified and you're in slumberland. And, you know, here's the thing. A lot of people, you know, couples fight, right? For example, I want to sleep on a semi-firm mattress. Stacy wants me to sleep on the couch in the basement. So a lot of times there's couples disagree on how they want to sleep, but you can take the Helix Sleep quiz with your partner, and they will match you to a mattress that works for both of you. You go to helixsleep.com. That's Helix, by the way. You take the 2-minute quiz. You sleep on your back or on your side? Are you hot? Are you cool? What, all that type of stuff. They match you up with the mattress. You order it. They deliver it to your door. You unbox it. The unboxing is magnificent. And it doesn't take 5 people to drag this thing in your house. And you can get one that your significant other is happy with. People have slept over 1 billion hours on Helix mattresses.
That sounds so nice right now.
They just don't have enough to do, those people. They've got way too much spare time. But they do have over 12,000 5-star reviews, folks. So, once again, right now, if you go to helixsleep.com, they're offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for just our listeners at helixsleep.com/JCE. 10-year warranty. You get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. They will pick it up for you if you don't love it. They'll also pick it up if you don't pay for it. So keep that in mind. Folks, once again, helixsleep.com, up to $200 off and 2 free pillows. Take a drink of the beam. Sleep on the most comfortable surface in America today, the Helix Sleep mattress. And why are you listening to us? Why are we even doing this program? Let's just take a nap.
Oh, don't even joke about that, because we could do that.
We could do that. We could do that easily.
Yes, we could.